A question says, please explain halal slash haram types of music in Islam. Well, basically it depends on what you mean by music. If you're talking about all instruments as music, including percussion instruments, then those types of percussion instruments like drums are permissible in Islam. Percussion is permissible. So if you have anything that will produce a sound like this without having metals in it, that will eventually give you a sound similar to string and blowing instruments. Because you have percussion instruments, you have string instruments, you have blowing instruments. The prohibition came mainly about, the prohibition was a general prohibition, was like an absolute prohibition, meaning a mutlaq prohibition, and it has not been qualified, or in general it has not been specified. But then the qualification or the specification of a certain type of instruments from the generality of musical instruments that were forbidden in Islam was mentioned in the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ permitted the duff, which is an instrument it's like a drum, but it is covered from one side only, a drum that is only covered from one side. So that was explicitly permitted by the Prophet ﷺ. Now, some of the scholars will say that this is permitted in certain occasions. It does not seem, at least to me, that the duff was prohibited in other occasions and just permitted in certain occasions. There were certain occasions in which it was stated that the duff was permitted, but we don't know that the duff was ever forbidden or prohibited. Some people will limit it to certain occasions like weddings and people who are traveling and workers and so on, but some people would allow it in other occasions as well, and I believe that it is to be allowed. As long as it is duff, it is to be allowed. The other issue here is whether we extrapolate from that instrument to other types of instruments that will produce similar sounds, basically other types of percussion instruments that would produce similar sounds, and also I believe that this should be fine. Singing without musical instruments should be fine. Basically, singing here is chanting poetry or certain rhymes. If the content is a wholesome content, then singing is permissible. If the content is wholesome, then singing is permissible. If you add to it some musical instruments, then like I said, if you add those percussion instruments like the drum, the one-sided drum, or things that are like it, then that is allowable as well. But other types of instruments are not allowable according to the vast majority of the scholars. Is there a disagreement? Yes, there is a disagreement. However, the vast majority of the scholars had said that this is not permissible. Blowing and string instruments are not permissible. Some of the scholars, and keep in mind, those scholars that said it is permissible, we respect them, we revere them, we have to treat them just like we treat the rest of the scholars, because whenever a scholar makes a mistake, that does not discredit them, that does not disqualify them. Absolutely, because if a mistake by a scholar disqualifies them, then we will have no scholars to hold on to or to refer back to, because each and every scholar made mistakes. The only infallible one was the Prophet ﷺ. So great scholars did say it is permissible, yes, but we do have the hadith that's reported by Bukhari that indicates to us, implies to the majority of this, implied to the majority or the vast majority of the scholars that musical instruments are impermissible except for this one type.